Hello, my name is Adrian Morales, and we will be talking about um, the technical perspective on databases. And I do just want to say sorry for the music. I am not currently at home. Um, had to go to a nearby restaurant to get some Wi-Fi from. So very sorry about the background noise. I will try to make this really quick. Obviously within the allotted 10 minutes. So please don't deduct any points off. Um, so I do just want to go towards the recommendations, the not the recommendations, but just the technical explanation of the database. So in general, um, a couple of things that we'll be talking about is just the structured system, how it's stored, the fact that it's open source, the fact that you can use different programming languages, and then some of the advantages of just database in general and its querying structure. So just like a quick thing about databases is that it's just very critical in every system and every company that is going to be using this because um, it stores sensitive information such as user data, credentials, financial records. Also, like one of the more um, like targeted systems that are being affected uh, by attackers, and something that we as cybersecurity professionals would like to keep in check and make sure that it doesn't get affected anywhere or any sensitive information doesn't get stolen. So just to go to what the database is, it's just that it's just a structured system that is used to store, manage, and receive data um, efficiently. Database stands um, it's just a managing system, but the data is organized in tables. Um, it's made up of rows and columns, and each row represents a record, and each column represents an attribute of that data. Um, so the structure system, obviously, we already talked about that. How it's stored, open source, so it's just really good too. There's not really just much to go on that, just the fact that it's open source. And then we have programming languages, so you can write in different programming languages such as like Python, obviously any other language that you want to use. Um, some of the advantages would be um, ACID compliance, which just makes sure that like there's reliable transaction handling. Data integrity is used for support on constraints, unique keys, foreign keys, and the complex validation rules. Performance and scalability would be, just making sure that it's efficient at handling large volumes of data, and then the fact that it can also like just deal with more of that data in the future, um, and the fact that it can do it at like fast speeds as well. That's all great. Um, Anything else that I need to talk about? Let me see. The querying engine as well. It just lets you do commands such as like select, insert, update, delete. Um, and then the storage engine will also determine how the data is stored onto the disk. So it uses a indexing method such as B-trees to improve the performance of those large data sets. And then another thing that we were just talking about, asset properties, would be like transaction manager, which that relies on the data reliability of asset properties. Um, all of those three things that I just talked about just ensure that the system, even if it does crash or multiple people or users are accessing it, that the data does remain accurate and consistent. Um, and then just talking about PostgreSQL, it's just an open source database management system um, that a lot of companies do use. So couple of its features would be the fact that it has complex queries and joins, indexing and performance optimization, role-based access control, and secure authentication methods. PostgreSQL does connect to TCP port 5432, and it's also just really known for being highly reliable in terms of standard compliant, and it's a very strong choice for companies to be using. So going into our hardening recommendations, we have restrict network, enforce authentication, and enabling and auditing. So going into restrict network access, pretty much what I mean by that is obviously a database could be exposed to multiple networks, which increases the risk of just unauthorized access, and that is something we don't want happening. The more the database is exposed to multiple networks, the more attackers have a chance to gain access to it. So what we want to do is limit it to a specific IP address and have firewalls put up having rules that only allow it to be trusted by certain systems. So instead of allowing any connection from anywhere to interact with it, we only want certain connections connected to our database on our internal network. This will just reduce attacks and prevent attackers from even trying to get to the database. And then for our second recommendation is enforcing authentication. So anything that deals with any type of data, especially sensitive data, we want really strong authentication methods. Two methods that I found that are really good to secure the sensitive data would be SCRAM, SHA-256, or MD5 hashing. Also just strong password policies should always be enforced. Role-based access control should also be enforced as well. This is just going to make sure that users have only the permission they need, and people that don't have access to this information can't get access to it or as easily. So overall, it's just strong authentication is to prevent brute force attacks and credential compromise. Going to our third recommendation would be enabling logging and monitoring, or auditing, same stuff pretty much. Just making sure that PostgreSQL or any database provides logging features that can track any type of login attempts, query execute that have been executed, and any type of errors in system activities. These logs that show up should be reviewed on a daily basis, or at least regularly. It should be implemented into the monitoring system that we are using. This is just going to check for if there are multiple failed login attempts. Now, obviously, some people forget their password within the company, and just making sure that it's not something unusual that's happening or an attacker that is trying to get into the system. Unusual queries could also indicate that data is trying to be extracted. So yeah, it's just very good to just keep reviewing those logs in case any actual real threats are lurking. So logging is just critical for detecting threats early and then responding to it. To these, having a incident response team to it. So just to conclude, what we have talked about would be that databases are structured systems that store and manage data using components like query engines, storage engines, and transaction managers, and that PostgreSQL is very good, works on port 5432, and it provides strong features such as managing and securing the data. However, proper configuration is always essential. So we always want to make sure that all of our hardening recommendations, and obviously there's a whole lot more recommendations that could probably be put on the list too, but just making sure that they're access restricted, good authentication, and then enabling logging and auditing. This would overall be good for the company and just gives out really good concepts for cybersecurity. Thank you and have a nice day.